It's loading, it's connecting, and I think now we are live. So good morning, everybody, from wherever you are. Very pleased to be here. We have our amazing team for the session. I will be your host for the session with Nijiri. We'll be on backstage helping you, and we have our lovely speakers, Jayden and Helena from CPHUX, but we'll talk about the full mindset of UX. So say hi in the chat, say from where you're logging in, what time is it now? We are in the second hour of the event. So I'll just do a quickly introduction before we can jump in, so everybody knows what to expect, because maybe it's the first session. First, a big welcome from the whole organization of 24 Hour of UX. If it's your first time, awesome. If you're second, you're the best. So it's your non-stop community-based UX conference because it's 24 hour all day long. So second hour here. And the second difference of 24 hour UX, it's community-based because speakers are not selected by a central committee, but proposed by the community and hosted from every places in the world. The belief is UX is as local as it's global, and this year we have groups from New Zealand, Asia, Africa, Europe, and America. All right, so this was the welcome. Now, second hours, and we have so many great talks, workshops coming up. It's more than 20 talks in 2 tracks. So you have UX in practice and elevating UX. So UX in practice is a bit more practical. And this one, for example, it's a bit more strategic. So you should have everything in the meet. Closing in, for this session, this group is coming from Denmark, that will bring you the full mindset of UX, that I will hand over quickly the microphone to them. And the last thing I need to say are the interactions, the options, where you have, emojis at the bottom, where you can express reactions. You can also send messages in the chat, like everybody are doing. So it's so cool to see so many people, like, Asia, Denmark, Pakistan. So continue to say hello, guys. They're pretty awesome. If you have questions, you can add it into the Q&A. So it's on the right. So people can upvote it as well. And like the Jayden and Helena will be able to answer them later by prioritizing this. Also, last thing, we have a subtitle option with a CC that you can click on it. It works pretty well if you want this as a comfort. So now, without further ado, I will hand over to Jayden and Helena, and we will go backstage. So let me not do any mistake. And all right.
Hi guys. I'm loving the emojis. Please use them throughout the talk. That's amazing.
Hi, I'm Jayden and
I'm Helena.
Nice to meet you all. We're super excited to talk to you about the 4 mindsets of UX design. So let me just get right into it and share my screen here. Alrighty. Cool. Kick it off.
Yeah, so the 4 mindsets of UX design, we also call it the RCAT model. And it's a model that I created back in the days because I was just super frustrated with not being able to communicate what role that I actually had in UX design. But let's go into the agenda first.
Absolutely.
Very, very simple agenda today, a talk and then a Q&A. So please do write questions throughout the talk in the Q&A. So we have some questions when we're done with the talk from the get-go.
So we'll try and give a good amount of time at the end, like 10 or 15 minutes. We'll see how fast we get through this.
So as I said before, my name is Helena Levison. Please do add me on LinkedIn. I'm a classic trained designer, but always knew that my heart was really beating for UX design. And in Copenhagen, I'm called the Queen of UX. Not in any way to say that I'm the best at UX design, but I'm actively working and have actively been working on trying to raise the industry standard of UX design for many years.
Yeah, and I'm Jayden Hanly. I moved to Denmark 2.5 years ago from Australia. My background is in game design. I worked in that for 7 years and kind of discovered UX as I pivoted out of kind of game design. I was doing educational games and started realizing, okay, designing an experience for a player is very similar to designing an experience for an app or a digital service. So I really like this thing of designing experiences. So let's explore UX a little bit more. And then when I moved over here, I could see Helena doing a lot of great stuff with CPHUX, doing lots of great events over here in Denmark. And obviously you need to connect and network with people when you're in a new country. So that's how I kind of connected with Helena.
And today we're co-founders.
Exactly.
So we're co-founders of CPHUX, Copenhagen User Experience. So it's not just a voluntary community. It's something that we're really working full-time on. And we're really trying to bridge the gap between companies and designers in Copenhagen and out of also the rest of Denmark, really.
Yeah.
So our vision is to raise the industry standard of UX design, and we believe we do that through our 3 missions. So by creating transparency around UX, because UX is a really large and growing field. By uniting UX designers, we truly believe that network is extremely important. And then by bridging the gap between UX designers and businesses.
Okay, I'm just checking the chat here to make sure that people can see things and then we're not having problems. The video is blurry. Let me see if I switch to low definition. Let me know in the chat if that is any better. I will have to like switch between like our presentation and like back to the chat. So I may be a little bit slow at responding. So just like I will keep checking in on this and make sure that it's okay. Okay, awesome.
Awesome. Thank you, Maria.
Thank you so much. Awesome. Great. Yeah, so the current activities that we're doing over here is we have a membership, a job board, and a global calendar. So most of these things aren't going to be relevant to the global audience, such as yourselves. But just to cover these things off, we have a membership where you can rewatch all of our events that we've run, and I think we have about 90 recorded events in that library now, among other things. We got a job board where we're actually going around all of the job boards in Denmark, and Helena is going through and finding all these UX announcements and jobs.
And it's actually the only UX job board that there is in Denmark, and that was the point, that we were just tired of like seeing all the crap you get when you search for UX.
Yeah, like you search UX on a job board, and then you kind of get like a technical engineer for some reason. You're like, what is that? Is not. It's like, where is that mentioned UX? So we're kind of on a daily basis curating that job board for designers to really get a focused view. And then finally, we're also on a weekly basis curating like the global events. Since everything's online now with Corona, it's super easy to get overwhelmed, but also get an overview of the events that are happening since it's all online now. So we've actually gone and handpicked a lot of things that are happening around the world. And this calendar also like allows you to set your local time and just kind of see when things are happening around the world as well. So that's really cool. So you can check it out on our website.
So during the last couple of years, we've done a lot of events. It started with me doing an event called UX Meet and Greet, where we'd go out and visit companies. And it was really interesting to hear about what companies actually wanted, because when you go and visit their website, it's actually not super representative of who they are and what they actually do. So we would go out and visit companies and hear about cases that they've done to like understand how they were working.
Yeah, and also that as we were visiting all these companies around Copenhagen and Denmark, that we would see how all these different teams would work together. We would hear about obviously the people coming to the events, what they wanted out of the event, what they wanted to see and learn from the companies. And over the time, I think how many years have you been running the events now?
Since 2017.
Yeah. So 5 years.
Shit.
So 5 years. We've started to see, okay, this is how the teams are set up, and this is what people are looking for, and we've discovered some patterns from our activities that we do, and also from these events that we do.
And that kind of led us to this question, like, how do you define yourself in the world of UX? Because we come with vastly different backgrounds, and it can be really confusing, and especially if you are a junior, then it can be even harder to figure out who you are. So I want to show you the first business card that I ever had, and I call myself research UX/UI designer with a holistic approach. And holistic approach really meant that, like, service design, kind of.
Yeah.
And it was super confusing for people who were not in UX design, who didn't understand our world. They were just like, I have zero idea of what you actually can do. And it's also super wide. Research UX UI is really trying to cover the whole thing. And
I mean, I started, as I mentioned before, I was hired as a content designer, and for many years I was called a content designer, and I was like, yeah, I guess I'm making content, but that's like super broad. Yeah. And then eventually I asked my boss, okay, can you pay for this UX course with General Assembly? I'd like to learn some more about this, and can we change my role to UX designer, and I can start advocating for the process here. And he was like, yeah, sure. Like, it's not like it was a big deal to him about what I was called, right? But it was to me, and it was an active change, right? But that was, again, just a very umbrella term, like UX designer. I was doing a little bit of everything from research all the way through to, applying it into the product.
I'd love to hear from you guys. Please, in the chat, write what is your current job position?
Yeah,
we would love to hear that. That's always super funny. So please, in the chat, go. Multimedia designer, content designer, UX lead, UX researcher, experience UI architect. Oh, no, it's going fast. I can't keep up.
Junior UX designer, design lead.
And it's super interesting, but we'll get to it. It ties in with the mindset model. So let's
backend developer, CX designer, experience designer, UX manager. Yeah.
So many different titles. Amazing. So UX is really an umbrella term, and we're seeing that in chat right now with all these different titles that you're using. And it's a great thing because it brings us together.
So from what we can see in the chat, but also from all of these jobs that we've been uploading for the last 2 years on our job board, you can really see the range of what UX is called, right? Or doing UX actively in the industry is called by the people hiring. And this can be motivated by so many different things. As a hiring manager, maybe you are in the UX department and you know a lot about UX, you know exactly what to call it, exactly how to describe it. Or maybe you are in the HR department and you're kind of abstracted out of, fully understanding this, and, you're actually kind of just advertising what's popular, right? And what's going to get the most amount of candidates through.
And honestly, I've seen companies where the way they describe the role of a product designer is exactly the same way that another company would describe a digital designer or a UX designer. So it's always dependent on companies as well, and the culture that they have within the background that they have as well.
Yeah, and their like mindset as well, right? Like, okay, we believe that UX and UI need to go together, so we are going to hire for UX/UI, and they're very different things, and there's all these different approaches and beliefs around it. And I think that is just from this being such a growing industry, right? And any industry that is growing in maturity over time is going to have these like teething issues where they're going to be learning, okay, you know, marketing when it first started there was probably a whole bunch of mess there too. And now there's some very solid roles that are very consistent now.
But with the whole thing of being under this umbrella term is also that it can be quite lonely, and it's especially for juniors, it can be very hard for them to describe who they are. Also, like you come in and there's like all these pillars of UX and like information architecture and content strategy and yeah, all these different things, and trying to figure out where am I in this, it can be really, really hard. And the problem is that when you're going out and sending your applications, you can put yourself too narrow, but you can also, so you're closing off opportunities that could actually be perfect for you. But you can also, yeah, be too wide, and then people are just like, well, he doesn't know what he's doing, so can't even take him serious. And I really want to acknowledge that it can be very, very painful to be in this situation and not really understanding and being able to express your profile can be very, very frustrating. And we meet that so often with our members.
Yeah. It's you want to try and find something to align to, right? And like you've just come out of university, or you've done a course, or you've transitioned from another industry, and you're like, okay, how do I align myself with something? What should I specialize in this industry? And then you look at the job market and you're like, oh my God, yeah. What do I do?
The jungle of job titles.
Yeah,
that's never going to change.
So yeah, we've kind of defined this problem of like, you know, the problem is that defining ourselves by job title is really too open to interpretation, especially in this maturing industry. And that's kind of because there are all these different ways of working as well, as mentioned before, the different companies, the different mindsets, the different HR departments, the different processes that you go through. You could like, align to say a process like this, and then you start advertising a role more around this kind of process in design. Or for example, you have a user experience designer that, you know, is advertised as user experience designer, but then ends up doing visual design or interaction design or front end stuff or the design system. And then, you know, being honest with yourselves, okay, actually, does that fall into a UI designer category, or, you know, where does it all sit? And it's a very blurry lines between all this stuff. Same with like the crossovers here, right? Like user experience versus visual design. Okay, does that cross over into, you know, what does that mean? Or blending all this stuff together.
And I mean, all these models are really, really great in their own right, but it's just they're not very great at a designer to actually communicate what is it that I'm good at.
Yeah.
So yeah. But yeah, let's get into it. Like all this warm up for like the whole port.
The prep.
So this is a mindset model that I created. Again, as I said earlier, we usually call it the RCAT model because that each of the letters represent one of the mindsets. And it's very important to really underline that this is mindsets. This is focusing on how do we like to think, because I think most of you have actually worked in this full process at some stage, perhaps more in one of the like process areas, but we've all like dipped our toes in the waters.
Yeah.
And that's the whole point, that designers are really versatile and we can do a lot of things. So it's not to say that you can't do anything, like that you can't be in all of them, but it's thinking about like where is it that you really thrive working at. Let's get to it. So it's again a little umbrella because we like to keep to the UX as an umbrella term. And the first one is for research. And this is the mindset where you're really curious and you kind of want to go out and you want to gather knowledge and you're always asking questions.
Yeah. And it kind of speaks to, you know, are you a people person? Are you like able to facilitate? Are you inspired by that? Does that get you excited? Do you feel like you have energy after you've, you know, done this kind of stuff? And obviously then getting nerdy with the data and the insights and things like this. This is something that you could say, okay, I'm very good at that, but do you love doing that? Is that something that gives you passion, right?
Then there's C for conceptual, or conceptualizer, as we usually call it. And these are the people who basically take the insights that the researchers has found, and then they kind of transform those insights into what is most meaningful for the project at hand. So that could be a blueprint, it can be a service, it could be a concept, it could be a mock-up, prototype, again, depending on what is that we're trying to design, what is that we're trying to achieve here.
Yeah, and this is someone that I'm in this category. Personally, I align with conceptualizer, because I really love the high level thinking side of things, right? Like just grabbing a lot of like constraints and, stakeholder perspectives and going, okay, you want this and you want this and you want this. So that gives me energy, that gives me passion. And that's something that, this category represents.
Then there's A for aesthetics, and these are the people who love to get like really nerdy and be pixel pushing and looking at like, I saw one of those guys like working, Alberto, and he had like a full like screen open with just like different gradients, or like not gradients, like colors, like different types of blue, and he had like, the tiniest little difference, and I was just like, whoo, that's really hard, because I'm not an aesthetic person. So for me, that's just super overwhelming. But like these are the people who really like want it to look sublime.
Yeah, and it's not sublime. And it's not just like pixel pushing too, right? It's also like writing or anything that is going out to be publicly facing in an aesthetic way. So it could be the text and how you're doing your UX writing, or it could be the pixel pushing, or it could be the layout and all these sorts of other things that, gets you excited and gets you passionate.
And then the last one is the technical designer, not to be confused with a developer, because technical designers and developers are two different breeds in a sense, but they do share a lot of the same tools. But the technical designer obviously thinks very technically and in code kind of, and they are usually able to code. But what they would do is they would code components that they would then hand over to the developers, and then they actually make the full thing. Yeah,
it's again like what gets you excited, right? Like if you like getting nerdy with the how things are implemented, right? This requires you to have a technical mindset, to understand how things are coded so you can hand things off, and getting really technical with your prototype, so it's almost like the real thing or whatever it is. But this is something that you can spend hours on and that you're super passionate about.
Setting up an A/B test, right? One thing is creating the visuals for it, but another thing is actually setting it up so it works on the website, right?
Yeah.
So I'm curious, can you go back? Please write in the chat, what is your first strongest mindset? I can see, and I'm definitely R and C, conceptual. Awesome to see that. And some might have even more. I saw one that had several there.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Concepts.
And I would say that there's not one way to be UXer or not, but I definitely see most UXers do own the C. But that's just.
I guess can the moderators create a poll for this?
That would be really cool.
That would be cool, because I just saw that someone created a poll before, so maybe that's possible. But yeah, if you can create a poll with the 4 options here.
That could be cool.
With multiple select, I don't know.
No, it's good. No, but let's get back into the presentation. Cool. And thank you for sharing, guys.
Yeah.
Super interesting.
It's really cool. Super nice. Yeah, so the goal of this is not to try and create something that is the lore around UX, right? Like this stuff is going to evolve. It's a maturing industry. We're iterating on this mindset as we're going out there and talking with companies and talking with designers and seeing, okay, does this align with you? Does it make sense? And so it's not to say we're trying to say in an arrogant way, this is the mindset thing that exists and you should follow it. it's really something that we're exploring, and the purpose of it is to really just create a universal language. So if we can get companies to at least have a conversation around this, even if they don't agree with it, but at least it's a framework that then we can start having a conversation about, okay, when you're looking for this role, this UX hire, whatever you want to call it, let's ignore the job title for a second here, and let's talk about these mindsets. Let's talk about the project you're working on. Let's talk about, all these things, and then align it to which category is like the person you're looking for. And same with designers on the other side, like trying to help people that are transitioning or juniors, or even, people that are switching jobs to go, okay, where do you sit, and what are you passionate about, right? Where do you want your career to go? It's not just a tool for juniors who are seeing like all this craziness out in the market. It's also for people that are, have a couple of years under their belt too, and can go, what, sure. I've been working as aesthetics for ages, and actually my passion lies in research, because, I keep making stuff that I don't agree with on the research side. I just want to do research, right? So there's stuff that you can really have a good conversation with yourself around this.
So like as you said before, it's a great tool to be able to say, I mean, when you start, you might only have one where you're like, this is where I really love working. And then when you go 5 years into your career, you might be like, well, actually, I started with conceptual and then I went into research, but now I want to explore aesthetics or technical. So that's, again, it's not saying, okay, now you've analyzed yourself and this is forever your profile. The whole point is that you can really take it different directions, but it's just super important that when you go in and applying for a job, that you're like making sure that you're getting hired for a job that you actually want to do. So let's say that you do have that background in graphic design, and then you get hired for an aesthetic role, but you're super tired of doing visual design. Then that's not going to be good for you. And if you're like leaning to, I want to get into research, it's just going to be super frustrating. So it's a good way to kind of say, this is the way that I prefer to work, and also just ask the employer, but you'll get into the employer thing. But I think it's important to again say that the difference between strengths and mindsets is that strengths is something that we already hone. So you can be a super strong aesthetic person, but you actually want to work in the research. Then that's your mindset. That's where you want to develop as a professional. And this is again where we shouldn't always just look at what people are hiring for. We should also really look inwards and be like, what is it that I want to do with my professional career? Because damn, guys, you spend a lot of time at work. So make sure that you like what you do.
Exactly. It's also just like, that question with kind of extroverts and introverts, right? Like, where do you get energy? Like you can say, do you get energy from being with other people or being on your own? And, I have a little bit of both. I get some energy when I'm just on my own, and I also get some energy right after an event. And I'm just like, damn, that was good. I got to meet so many new people. So this is kind of similar to that. Like, it's not saying, okay, I'm good at networking, so therefore I must be getting energy from that. It's like, no, I can also get pretty drained from that, even though my skill set or my strengths might be that I'm charismatic. My mindset is I like to spend some time on my own as well. So that's kind of the difference, right? But yeah, we've been also working with companies and recruiters and trying to talk to them about, like I mentioned before, this universal language. How do I use this as a tool to have a very constructive conversation around what they really want? And it's been very interesting. So, as we have probably seen, there's this dream scenario out there in the market of this like magical UX unicorn that can do everything all the way from, end to end. And, you're just going to, what the reality of the situation is you're probably going to end up like either walking like this because you're just so stressed out that you've taken on so much, or it's just not even a reality that you can take on all of this stuff.
And a lot of times when companies are asking for all, like we've seen those completely unrealistic job posts, right? And the people that like either they're looking for a super senior person or they're going to get someone who's just trying to say that they can do everything and they're not really good at anything.
Yeah.
So don't try to be a unicorn because it's not going to be a success.
Yeah.
It's not going to be the dream scenario.
Yeah, I mean, like in a senior position, like you're probably going to end up doing more like managerial stuff or like mentoring of juniors or stuff that isn't end to end, right? You're now at like a higher tier of level of thinking in the organization that it's not, I don't think you want to be doing end to end, right? So, over the last couple of months, I've been working with a couple of companies here, just to name a few, Planday.
More than this.
More than this. This is just a handful. But some of the companies I've worked with over here and used the RCAT model to talk with them. And I just wanted to give you guys a bit of an insight into how that I've been using it to really create a good conversation. So I actually kind of introduce the mindset model like we have done here in the talk, go through each of them. But then I get the hiring manager that I'm speaking to actually prioritize the mindsets. And this is super tricky because some of them are like, no, well, these two are tied equal first. And I'm like, but that's not prioritizing, like put one before the other. Like, let's talk about why you're putting conceptual first and research second and aesthetics last, for example. And you can really start having some good conversations because then they're like, an example is I spoke to one company where it was kind of a unicorn post. They were asking for end-to-end everything. Yeah, help with interviews, but then also like create the mock-ups and talk with our key stakeholders and then also do high fidelity and then also do the A/B testing and the analytics. And I was like, okay. Let's come back to the mindsets. Tell me what's number one. Tell me what's number 4. And what ended up happening was they put aesthetics last, and then they're like, actually, we have a UI designer with a contract at the moment. So, if I had to prioritize, I could put the aesthetics down the bottom because we can find a solution to this. And it actually within a couple of minutes, their ask for this position completely changed, right? Because they kind of created this job description in a vacuum, right? And then within having a couple of minutes of conversation, that it's like, okay, well, we can compromise, right? Mm. We can find someone else to do this if this is what's realistic and this is what's not. And something that I also do is use this prioritization exercise with them, and then tell them that like, okay, with the mindset model, I personally, my opinion is that a junior level designer would be able to do, would have dipped their toes maybe in all of these things, but has kind of identified one of these things is their bread and butter, right? So that is what I tell them, like, okay, you've prioritized this stuff. If you want one of these things, that's a junior. If you want 2 of these things, that's a mid-level. If you want all of these things, that's a senior, right? And then that makes them go, oh, okay, so that's expensive to ask for everything. Yes, it is.
Very expensive.
It's very expensive. That's a lot to ask for. Okay, yeah. If I had to choose 2 of these, or whatever, like then you start having this conversation around level of experience versus what you're actually asking for, and that's proven really, really useful.
And again, I do want to say that some seniors actually end up their entire career just being one of these mindsets, because because they just want to specialize. These are the ones that we call specialists, and there's nothing wrong with that. This is not a competition about owning the most mindsets. It's really about figuring out where is it that you thrive working, and if you continue to be challenged in conceptualizing, then that's great. Then just like have the pride in that. You're probably the best conceptualizer in your field. That's fucking impressive. So it's not a competition. It's very important to say. It's about understanding who you are and where you want to take your career.
Yeah. And this is just the tool that I use to make it more of a realistic conversation when it comes to getting it out of the unicorn reality, this mystical fantasy.
And I think it's also important to say that you can be a junior in UX design, but again, if you have a background from something else, if you used to develop, do code, and you're now going into conceptualizing, you still have skill sets in code, so you can be that unicorn, I would call unicorn junior that has two mindsets. It's not as simple as
it's not
always individual.
This isn't lore, it's just practice, right? Guidelines stuff we've been using in practice that's been working from both sides. But yeah, that's kind of us.
That's our talk.
That's the mindsets we've been using, and we just wanted to do a little shameless plug at the bottom here, at the end here.
We're people.
If you are looking for UX professionals in Denmark, you can go to cphux.com/for-business, and that is something that's where you can actually advertise your position on our board. And if you're ever moving to Denmark and want to check out all the UX jobs, this is where we're spending a lot of our time at /job board to really curate that list for you guys. Yeah.
But yeah, let's jump into the Q&A. And again, do reach out to us we love it when you guys add us on LinkedIn. So go to LinkedIn, add us on LinkedIn. Cool.
So there's a Q&A section here. Cool. Alrighty, so I guess we go from, I'll sort by upvotes here. Can we
go in and vote on the, is there enough? Okay.
Yeah, sort by upvotes.
Can you share the slides?
Yes. We could share the slides.
Yes, definitely. I don't know where we would share them, but we will be more than happy to share our slides with you guys. It's not a secret.
Yes, exactly. All right, and so are UX Generalists a RCAT? So I imagine by UX Generalist, you mean someone that is kind of across. Yeah, I would say that is one of those, it depends on what the project and your team is, but I would say that you'd be hitting all of those mindsets. It really depends on the mindset thing for you is whatever you want it to be, right? So if it's something that you think that you get energy from all of RCAT, like research, concept, aesthetics, and technical, that you love all this stuff, then then it does cover all of that, being a generalist. But you could be a generalist. I would say I'm a generalist. I'm not a specialist, but I would say that I align with conceptualizing the most. That's what gives me the most energy.
It's understanding that we can do different things. Like as a UX, you can work in technical, but that's just not the mindset that you're thriving in. So it's not like saying, oh, I'm conceptualized, so I can't do the other things. Not at all. It's just about where is it that you're thriving to be.
Yeah. Does the role of a product strategist differ from a UX strategist? How much influence can a UX strategist have over a product strategist?
I think this is this jungle thing, right? It depends. This is literally which company, who are you asking?
Yeah.
They would have different answers to you. It's the same if you ask people what is UX design, they're gonna have 10 different answers for you because it's super subjective, and that's the problem that we addressed in the beginning, right? Yeah,
exactly. That's the hard thing to say. Okay, does a role of a product strategist differ from a UX strategist? I'm one company can call a product strategist and a UX strategist the same responsibilities, and that's what makes it so hard to answer this specific question, because I actually don't know what the role is, right? It's not clear to me what that role, what actually the difference would be, because this is why we're trying to do this mindset model, because then we can have something to a language we can actually talk in. So yeah, I don't think it's kind of hard for me to answer that one, unfortunately. Oops. Sorry. Here we go. Next question.
Yes, we'll share the slides.
We'll share that slides. What is the scope of job placement for interns? Most big firms discourage interns. So how do we approach them as a junior designer rather than an intern? Should we design our portfolio and resume in a certain way that they take us more seriously? Discourage interns.
I think this is, again, a cultural thing. I think it depends from country to country.
Yeah.
In Denmark, interns are very, very welcome, but they're also unpaid, because that's a historical legacy that we have, because we get paid by the government to study, and internships is in Denmark a part of your studies. So I think you should always, as an intern, approaches as if you were a junior designer, because you are a junior designer. Internship is basically just a little period of your time where you're kind of stepping in and trying to get a time-limited offer, right?
So most, it's I mean, when you ask about like designing your portfolio or resume in a certain way to take you more seriously, I mean, it's the portfolio and the resume thing is such a hard thing to say. Like, if you make your portfolio better, you will be taken more seriously. It's like very, it's not as simple as that. But obviously, as a junior, like, my advice would be spend some time doing some cases that aren't necessarily work experience, just stuff you can, most importantly, tell a story through your portfolio. Sorry, what you're doing is very distracting.
I'm trying to get the link for the presentation.
Oh, okay. Well, we can do that afterwards. So I lost my train of thought.
Sorry, guys. I'm distracting Jayden.
Yes. Anyway, I think,
but as an intern, you should take it as any type of junior application. And in internships, we think the reason why big firms are discouraging is because it takes a lot of resources for them. It's crazy how much time you spend on interns. We've had a few, and often you invest more time in them than they actually give back. So it's, again, about maturity of the company, that they need to be mature in order to have that extra energy to give to an intern.
I was going to say that about the maturity of the company as well, right? Like, I was just speaking to a company the other day that they are starting to set up a way that their junior designers now, or their mid-level designers now, can work their way up. So there's actually a trajectory for your career as a UX professional. So I shouldn't just say designers, but as a UX professional in this company, you can move up, and that gives the vacancies at a junior level. So wanting to bring in junior designers more and have like entry-level positions, that's quite the barrier, right? You see that a lot, that there's 2 or 3 years minimum requirement on a lot of these positions, and it makes it hard for juniors to go, okay,
to get a chance.
How do I even get entry into this? So it's definitely a thing about the companies as well.
Do you think the job opportunities for UX are global? Do companies welcome foreign applicants?
In Denmark, at least, they do, I would say.
It depends. It's a company thing.
Yeah.
Because if let's say that in Denmark we have a Danish company with Danish clients, obviously we speak Danish in Denmark. If you can't speak the language, you're not going to get hired because you can't do the job. It's nothing about you being international. It's literally just about being able to,
especially
requirement, right?
Especially in like research positions, right?
Yeah.
That's something where you're going to be working closely with the clients and things like this. So the language is a barrier.
But I definitely, yes, I think UX is global. I think it's super easy for us to work in any country, because it's all about the ability to, some people don't even need to be there, depending again about where's the company, where's their users, right? And if you have a global company, even easier, but it's always different from company to company. So there's no one answer. Because there's no one company, there's several companies.
But like as companies like mature in UX, but also like, you know, it's in the conversation at the moment about like what bringing diversity to your team is as a internal HR thing, that bringing in different, you know, actually Copenhagen is quite an international city, right? So there are a lot of teams, actually a lot of the heads of UX in a lot of companies over here aren't Danish. That's very
literally people being flown in from other places to take on those more senior roles. Now, what are the opportunities and challenges for a PhD candidate in UX research in transitioning into UX research in the industry? We have a couple of those examples. And I want to encourage you guys to go to Facebook and find, there's a Facebook group which is called From PhD to UXR, UX Research. So I would definitely encourage people to go to that group. It's one of our members who started that group, Susie Ross. And I think that there are challenges because it again depends on what did you do for your PhD, of course. So if you had something that was super relevant, it's going to be easier for you. I don't think it's impossible at all.
No, not at all. I think the thing that I see from people that are very academic, and when you've done a PhD, you've done many years in academia, is that when it comes to communication of your work, the style of writing, you write a lot, right? Because you've been used to writing quite a lot and quite academically. And my advice to you would then be that consider the people that are reading your projects and reading your work, that you basically need to write them a picture book version of your work. Seriously, because they either have no time to go through it, or they're not super mature about what all of this is. So that would be my advice. Try and write the picture book version.
And a general advice for PhD, for people in research, FinTech, they are the ones who have the money to hire researchers. So that's one of the industries that are really fast forwarding and raising the flag of research, also because they know that they need to understand their clients better in order to be like the victorious companies, victorious companies in the market.
Do you have any advice for fresh graduates without much project experience when entry-level jobs ask for 3 to 5 years?
Yes, I do. Okay, so first of all, network. This is hard in COVID times. That's how I landed my job, like as a junior. It's like literally went out to as many networking events, again, relevant tech-related events, and just like introduce myself. There's nothing wrong with being unemployed. But it's again, or job seeker, like let's not say unemployed, that sounds sad. Being seeking jobs, but it's again, how do you propose yourself? So going out and being like, hi, I'm Helena, and then you chat a little bit, and then at some point you'll be like, you know what, I'm actually looking for a job. So if you hear anyone who's looking for a UX professional, then think of me, and then just leave it at that, and then like continue like chatting casually on LinkedIn. Always LinkedIn, best place ever. And then also do create some dummy projects, sign up for hackathons or startup weekends, or especially like understanding where are you in the RCAT model, and then make some projects that support that. I was so frustrated once. I had a guy, he was clearly a concept designer, and then in his portfolio he had a logo and a game, and I was just like, this is not at all communicating the jobs that you're applying for or who you actually are. So you're sending the wrong impression with your portfolio. So make sure that your portfolio is reflective of what you actually want to do in your work, in your future work.
And also like a lot of the, like this industry that we're in of UX, people are really open, right? It's not like people have these barriers of like, don't talk to me. Like I'm the professional, you're the junior. Like a lot of people that are working in UX do want to give back. You know, they're just super busy, right? So I think it's, you know, go reach out to people at companies that you want to work at. Reach out to mentors on like websites like ADP List, and just start getting, you know, start talking to people and asking these questions of like, okay, how would you advise that? Can you review my portfolio? You know, obviously I'm looking for work, but like, you know, I'm not putting the pressure on you to hire me. I'm just wanting to learn more about this. And, you know, as you become more active and you build your network, as you mentioned, that's going to help a lot.
And again, like go on ADP List, search for people from your own country. That's always more relevant. You might get a big shot from the US, but if you're not in the US, so try to find local designers that can mentor you, and then just be like, hey, I'm looking for a job. If you know anyone, again, think of me, so you're not putting pressure on them. Jayden, what's a good example of a technical design or UX?
So what comes to mind with the technical mindset is actually someone that actually does the probably the design system coding. Like, you know, sometimes you can create these code snippets that developers can go and grab straight away because, you know, front-end development, for example. I also think it has a lot of crossovers with roles like being a product owner or a project manager of a UX project or of the UX team, because you are thinking about how it gets handed off to the developers. So I think it's a very like broad one, but yeah, I would say those kind of roles.
I have a very concrete example. If you guys know the author and very talented UX designer, Laura Klein, I think she's an example of, like, she owns multiple mindsets, that's for sure, but she's like an example of a T professional. She has a podcast called What is Wrong with UX? Amazing podcast. And she talks about that she will develop and program, like code little prototypes. And she's like, in no way should this be the final thing. This is like just an example to like make it like come alive in a sense. So I think she's a good example of a real life person that is actually doing it, but she definitely owns way more than just the T mindsets.
Very cool. Are we just coming back here to come back in and talk?
Yeah.
Awesome.
They're kicking us out.
We're just jumping back in quickly because it's 5 minutes left. So we just have a quick message for everybody. Like thanks, like first, thank you for you, these speakers. But also we want to leave the audience aware that there's other talks coming in. So we have 2 talks coming in next. So if if you want to stay and get your answers answered by Jayden and Helena, you can stay here. We will leave the session open. No worries about this. But we have 2 other talks coming in. So one is about creating culture change. So it's the elevating UX track. And the next one, also UX in practice, is about design ops, product ops, research ops, things you could speak as well, Jayden and Helena, because it's a more buzzword anyway for our titles, but it's starting in 3 or 4 minutes. So don't hesitate. You can go back into the Air Meet and just select the next session. So that's more or less, and if you want to continue, we'll just continue a bit more until we can finish the Q&A here.
With the sharing of the slides, do I send that? Where do we send that through to, by the way?
I would bet to send this to Jess and Peter, and I guess later, like they'll probably make it available for everybody or this kind of thing.
So I just put it in the chat right now. There's a Google link, Doc link for you guys that are in here, where you can find the presentation.
Okay, we can pin the message.
Okay.
So it will be on top of the chat for everybody. And, let me just do this now. So it's done. And maybe Julie has done it. Okay.
I have.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Cool. Thanks.
Nice.
So that's it. And we will just disappear again.
Well, we'll answer as much as we can in the last minute and a half.
Yeah, exactly. Depends on you. And then when you're done, just let us know and we'll just, kind of close the session.
Cool.
Nice.
Very nice.
Thank you, guys. And go and watch other talks, guys. Our Q&A should not be more interesting than that.
Yeah. Nice. Is there a blog post on the mindsets that I can share with my local community? There should be.
There really should be. We have been talking about making a blog post like that for years, and we still haven't done it.
Okay.
Oh,
I'm
sorry. We're gonna do it now. Okay, we're gonna do it.
I'm writing it down.
Now, Claudio, you're making things happen. It was Claudio, sorry. It disappeared. Sorry, I don't know who wrote it. But great question.
Yeah.
We'll write it in our to-do list and we'll make sure that it gets done.
Yes.
So Agnes has a question. For a designer with a few years experience, what do you advise while job searching in Copenhagen? I think it's easy to job search in Copenhagen. Again, network. Become a member of CPHUX, because what we do, what I think is unique, one thing is you get access to the job board, but on our Slack channel, we actually share people that are posting on LinkedIn so that you can connect with the people who have shared these things. So this is, again, building your network in a meaningful way. So not just adding a bunch of random people. There's a lot of UX people who never post anything on LinkedIn. So they're not the good contacts. So we're basically trying to let our members know where are the good contacts coming in from, and then add those people.
And also, every month you're able to book in a session with me, and we can go through your portfolio and go through your LinkedIn or your CV and kind of talk through all your touch points that people can actually learn about you as a designer. And also just you can also connect with other mentors, as we mentioned before, on ADP list, other designers in Copenhagen that are, open to mentor you. So I would definitely advise that.
Yay! What is the best way to simulate ourselves to achieve?
Stimulate.
Okay. It's early in the morning. It's 9 o'clock. What's the best way to stimulate ourselves to achieve deeper knowledge on the other mindsets? I think it depends on what mindset you want. I would say reading, literally reading some books, try to find some podcasts that are on a specific area. That's personally what I do, read articles, join groups with other people in that area. There's so many groups on. I think I personally prefer Facebook groups over LinkedIn groups because you don't get notified in any way on LinkedIn, but you do when you're in a Facebook group. Follow people on Instagram, on Twitter, whatever social media you're on. I think that's the way. And then ask your network. So be like, hey, I want to be better at this. What do you recommend? So you get recommendations from people.
Yeah. This is a really interesting question, and actually touches on the previous question about who do you see in the technical mindset. So some product management positions share the same responsibility areas as RCAT UXer. How do you see the interplay between product managers and senior UXers? So as I mentioned before, product manager, project manager, product owner, this kind of stuff is has so many crossovers, and we're at the moment having conversations about, okay, how much broader does the scope of our mindsets actually go? Because we do see positions as for product. Obviously, a product designer kind of comes under it, but then you see product owners, you see
UX leads,
you see
head
different
of UX,
you see management roles, you see other things, and that's something that we're talking about but haven't actually kind of seeing how it fits right now. But I actually do see it aligns. It's obvious that it aligns with the RCAT, but it's still something we're trying to map out, because we are seeing a lot more of those kind of positions, and they are as you say, crossing over a lot. I think we'll finish up there. I think that's kind of the highest voted ones at the top there.
Thank you guys so much for joining us. It was awesome. Have amazing, like you have 24 hours of UX. So there's so much great content out there. Make sure to go to a lot of other talks and stay safe. Be good people. Like, it's like
be good people.
Karma, right? Like if you're asking for help when you're junior, make sure to respond to people when you're senior. Like, pay it forward.
Pay it forward. Yeah,
exactly. Thank you so much for having us, and
thanks for coming.
Talk to you on LinkedIn.
Add us.
Yay! That was really awesome having you guys.
Okay.
Yay! Well, thank you guys for hosting us, and have a good day.
Have a good day. Continue. Have a good
you
session.
too.
See you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Later. Bye.